If someone asked you to name a queer icon, who would you say?
Britney, Christina, Shirley Bassey, Tina, Madonna, Celine Dion, Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey.
Bruce Springsteen.
This is Because the Bus Belongs to Us,
A serious journalistic quest to get Bruce Springsteen recognised as the queer icon we know that he is.
Listen to Because the Bus Belongs to Us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
There's something different about the conversations we have late at night.
They often spin off in strange and wonderful directions.
So what if those laid-back conversations were with some of the biggest musicians in the world?
Midnight Chats has already welcomed Tame Impala, Charlie XCX, Mark Ronson, Vince Staples, and many more.
Join me, Stuart Stubbs,
And me, Greg Cochran,
as we talk to our favourite musicians about the things they don't normally talk about.
Listen to the new series of Midnight Chats on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favourite shows.
Want to know how to leverage culture to build a successful business? Then Butternomics is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Brandon Butler, founder and CEO of Butter ATL. And on Butternomics, we go deep with today's most influential entrepreneurs, innovators, and business leaders to peel back the layers on how they use culture as a driving force in their business. Butternomics will give you what you need to take your game to the next level. Listen to Butternomics on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Katie Lowe's.
And I'm Guillermo Diaz.
And we're the hosts of Unpacking the Toolbox, the Scandal Rewatch podcast where we're talking about all the best moments of the show.
Mesmerizing.
But also, we get to hang out with all of our old Scandal friends like Bellamy Young, Scott Foley, Tony Goldwyn, Debbie Allen, Kerry Washington.
Well, suit up, gladiators. Grab your big old glass of wine and prepare yourselves for an even more behind-the-scenes stories with Unpacking the Toolbox.
Listen to Unpacking the Toolbox on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts,
or wherever you get your podcasts.
Meet the real woman behind the tabloid headlines in a personal podcast that delves into the life of the notorious Tori Spelling as she takes us through the ups and downs of her sometimes glamorous, sometimes chaotic life and marriage.
I just filed for divorce. Whoa. I said the words that I've said like in my head for like 16 years. Wild.
Listen to Misspelling on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Episode 433, Tips for Grocery Shopping on a Budget.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. My name is Jen.
My name is Jill.
And today we are talking about grocery shopping tips. We just recently did an episode about meal planning. We try to do a food episode every couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So, or at least every couple months.
Because we're all eating every single day.
Every single day.
And it is an area that if we are able to really hone in on our spending, it can make a big difference in our financial situation, how we can allocate money. So it makes sense that you all ask about food more than any other thing. And we're down because we like food.
And it seems redundant, but there's also so many articles about grocery shopping and meal planning, and we get to cover a new article every time we do a food episode. So that's also fun, is getting a peek inside other people's strategies and what's really working for them. And that's specifically the article we've chosen today. But first, this episode is brought to you by Snacks. Buy What You Love Without Going Broke is officially available for pre-order. So grab your snacks, because to celebrate, we are throwing a virtual launch party, and it's happening in just a few days, Tuesday, August 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard. We will be revealing some of our pre-order gifts. Jill will be hosting a game for us to play, and everyone who attends gets a free gift, which is very relevant to this episode because the free gift is a fall meal plan. So you don't have to worry about your meal plan for the fall. We've got you covered with 3 months of fall produce sale specific recipes from our favorite food bloggers. So That is a free gift for everyone who attends and for everyone who pre-orders. In addition to the pre-order gifts, there's going to be a special party gift that is available. So everyone is welcome. There is no extra sign up required. You just have to be signed up for the Friendletter. So head to frugalfriendspodcast.com to get on the Friendletter. If you already have the Friendletter in your inbox, you will see the link in your inbox. You should see it today. And then we'll also have one on Monday. So frugalfriendspodcast.com, sign up. We will see you at the virtual launch party for Buy What You Love Without Going Broke pre-orders.
I'm so excited. I can't wait to see what game I end up coming up with.
I am too, because I volunteered you for that.
Yeah, you did.
Because you are a actual virtual party host.
I have done it before. Like, it's not on my
several
resume,
times.
but
she's done it several times.
Yeah, it is fun for me.
And why would I let you do it for somebody else and not for us, Jill?
So true.
Using
Jen.
your gifts in your true calling.
The last day of my 34th year, the next day, August 21st, I turned 35. So it's going to be a banger.
The last day of your youth. Well,
it is.
Yes. I've been 35 for a while now, for a few months, and I can tell you youth is gone. So let's talk about groceries. So a few of the more recent episodes we've done specifically on grocery sales, where we've covered other articles on the internet. We've got episode 391, where we talk about the best seasonal grocery sales. Episode 296, we talk about grocery saving strategies that will cut your bill in half. That is an interview with Gina Zachariah, who, if you are on TikTok, you will know her as the Saving Whiz. And then episode 214, how to save money on groceries. That is a general one that you will get some extra tips on. But this article that we're covering today is exciting because it is a mom of fives, a mom of five people. It's her actual strategy for keeping her grocery budget to about $120 a week. And no, it wasn't written in 2018. It was written last year in 2023. So it's still relevant. That's another reason why we do these grocery store episodes, because we started this podcast in 2018. And those grocery
different.
Episodes are different.
My youth is gone. Our youth is over.
Yeah.
Prices are different.
Our episodes now are different than the episodes of my youth.
Yes. We're closer to 40 than we've ever been. And, we're bringing you real talk.
Mm-hmm.
So this article comes from BuzzFeed, and it is titled, "Here's How I Stretch a $120 Weekly Grocery Budget to Feed 5 People and Cover Nearly Every Meal." And I will say, real talk, a lot of times with the articles that we cover, I don't read them thoroughly. I'm not line per line. There's a little bit of skimming. I'm pulling out the best stuff. College taught me well. But with this one, I spent way too much time preparing for this episode, because I truly did enjoy both the tips and then her very specific meal plan that she gives. And I also love this because she talks about nearly every meal. A lot of times when we get meal plans, it'll just be for dinner, or people will talk about their grocery budget as if they're only eating dinner and the rest of us are also having breakfast and lunch. So it's like, how do I fit that in?
I'm intermittent fasting. I only eat one meal a day.
Just
kidding. No. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no.
That's how I keep my grocery budget so low, but I didn't include that in my article.
Yeah, no, and we don't encourage that either. So this feels so realistic and approachable to also be able to include all of the breakfasts and lunches and all of that. So we're going to first go through the tips on how to keep your grocery bill as low as possible. And then I want to take some time to go through her actual meal plan, because I feel like there's some fun things to pull out of that.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that the one of the second picture on this article, she's talking about she is currently a stay-at-home mom, but throughout this, she's also been a college student mom and a full-time working mom. And she has a cute little picture of her at her college graduation with a sign that says, "I did it," and a small human that said, "I helped." And will tell you that's a complete lie. That child did not help.
That child
did everything they could to not help, I am sure. So this, and she says that for a long time, that budget was $100 per week for groceries. But because this is 2023, that increased to $120. So we'll start with her first tip, and that is obviously to meal plan. We have a ton of meal planning episodes, but she meal plans with recipes with ingredients that can be used for multiple meals. I love her tips for meal planning. We'll go through all of those, but upfront preparation is key. And so we talk a lot about meal planning, but I always say that meal planning was just like a start for me. Meal planning is hit or miss. It's when I meal prep that's when I really am using the groceries that I bought. And so it's not as much of a thought when you're buying groceries, but the fewer groceries that you throw away is the fewer times you have to eat out, right? And so maybe meal prepping doesn't save you money on your current grocery trip, but it will save you money on your next grocery trip, or it will save you money in your eating out budget. So I just want to preface that with saying, like, her saying upfront preparation is key. It's not just about the meal planning, but it's also about the meal prep and planning things that are easier to prep.
The next tip that she gives is to prioritize what's on sale. And this can be found alongside meal planning with a quick search to the grocery store that you typically shop at. If you happen to get circulars in the mail, it's a little more old school, but there are ways to identify what is the store going to have on sale and how can I plan what I'm eating around what's on sale? Usually it's going to be seasonal produce. It might be meats that they got an excess shipment of, and it may mean altering or switching out some of your recipes that maybe you would have used to opt for something that's a little bit more on sale. So she gives an example that instead of chicken breast, she used chicken tenders after seeing them on sale. She was also able to get 99-cent milk and berries knocked down from $3.50 to $1.67. So these types of things. Now, okay, $1 here, $1 there, it doesn't make that much of a difference, but I think as we start to form habits, meal planning, especially utilizing these sales over time, I think we can see a decrease of potentially $20 to $30 a week, depending on how we're shopping, the fact that we are planning and prioritizing ahead of time. And over the month and over the year, that can really add up to some money that we can allocate elsewhere, whether that's for debt payoff or investing. So I think when it comes to grocery shopping and eliminating little bit by little bit, it's different from just cutting out your coffee daily, because if you save $1 here or $1 there on 50 items that you're getting at the store, that's significant, even for that one grocery trip.
Yeah. I jumped the gun on my first one, so I want to dive back into it, is picking recipes with ingredients that can be used for multiple meals. So this kind of goes into that prioritize what's on sale. Find out those things that are on sale, which are going to be those things that are in season, which we are actually, when we give you that free fall meal plan at our pre-order party, it's all going to be prioritizing in-season produce for the fall, which will inevitably be what is on sale. So you choose those and you pick recipes based on those that you can use. You can buy a little bit extra of that stuff and use it in multiple meals and in multiple ways. So getting creative with leftovers. Jill, you're so good at getting creative with leftovers. I am not as much. But she says sometimes eating leftovers all the time can get old. I try to remember that I can always use different components of my leftovers to create new meals. So this also means that we don't always need to be scared of higher cost items. What a concept is that when you can reuse something and use all of it, then you can afford maybe to get some higher cost items.
Yeah.
And it just means you need to be smart and think about how you utilize those items to stretch the budget as far as possible.
I just picked up for example, tahini this week, which is a higher cost item, but I'm going to lean into my Middle Eastern Greek recipes over the next couple of weeks and maybe even months. I'm going to be doing hummus. I made a yogurt sauce for a halal cauliflower bowl yesterday. So now that I know that I've bought this thing, it's not going to go to waste, and I'm prioritizing around that. But she also gives some really great examples in the second part of the episode. We'll talk about how she reuses ingredients. The next tip on here is clip your digital coupons. Now, we're not coupon girlies.
She said on the outline, stay with me.
But hear me out. There are some stores that have store websites or apps where they do offer digital coupons. So while I'm not advocating that we sit around going through circulars and physically clipping things out, there could be times where if you're shopping regularly at a certain store, they do have an app. There are ways to just quickly select as you're shopping. Yep, I'm getting that item. You select it. You go up, you scan your phone. That could be worth it. As well as, I think for some people, this isn't for everybody, but I know a lot of people really like Fetch and Ibotta and these types of things where you're scanning your grocery receipts and getting some money back that way. So it could be, while I think a lot of our pushback on couponing is somewhat having to do with the ways that it was portrayed to us on TLC in just 2016.
And how much time it takes now.
Exactly.
That it's not as easy to do. It takes a lot of time for not a lot of savings.
Yep. However, if you are shopping at similar places, like I don't shop at Target, but I know that they have something like this where if you're just in the app and you can select it as you're shopping and select, it's almost like looking at the circular and seeing what's on sale and basing your budget or your grocery plan and meal plan around that. It's similar. Again, I don't think that this is going to make or break you, but if you are looking for that extra little bit of ability to save here and there, that could be something to consider if your local grocery store offers it.
Her next tip is to buy the cheapest store brand most of the time. So she says, unless it's something I'm unable to use due to the peanut allergy that one of her kids has, or an item I absolutely love, or a different brand is on sale, then she does store brand.
And we did do an episode on that and pretty much found that, store brands are equivalent to name brand pretty much all the time.
We did a research deep dive into how chefs feel about store brand versus name brand. And yes, we found out that most of the time, except for stuff like butter and ice cream, everybody preferred the store brand. Because chefs are they're cognizant of the cost too, because they're cooking in a restaurant. So butter and ice cream. It's those dairy cows. You want high quality cows.
The next tip on here, I think, has a lot to do with meal planning and being able to stick to the plan, but she suggests asking your kids to help if you have young ones in the house. Referencing that feeding kids is a challenge. They often change their minds constantly. They get new taste buds every day. And one day they like one snack, the next day they hate it. But she tries to ask them to pick out recipes, usually by looking at pictures. So showing them, here's some things that we could be eating this week, and identifying what they are most excited about trying to eat, and also lets them pick out what they want for their lunches, snacks, fruit, veggies for the week. This, I think, is going to be hit or miss. I think it's going to depend on the child, certainly. But I think wherever you can get buy-in, it might go more smoothly week to week.
Yeah, you have to expect that it won't work, but you still have to try. It's one of those things. Like, you go in there, you do it, you do not have any expectations for it, but you are presenting the option, the lifestyle, the habit, and you go from there. That's it.
I think that's a reason to have backups that you do know your kids like, they really haven't changed their minds on, so that if you do try something new, you've still got that backup. And I think it's a reason to not bulk buy as your kids are going through the stage of changing their minds.
I just saw this on Instagram, and I think her name's Leanne Braun, and she made a joke about how she just bulk bought her daughter's favorite meal, and immediately once she bulk bought it, it was not the favorite meal anymore.
That sounds right.
And I was like, I just did the same thing with tortillas. And literally, a week later, Kai decides he no longer likes quesadillas. Right? So now I have to think of some creative ways to use tortillas.
Yeah.
Thankfully, those are a versatile
Make tortilla chips.
Make
wraps.
That was actually, I commented that on her reel, and somebody said tortilla chips. Somebody said like cinnamon sugar on the tortilla. There were a few good.
Nice.
Or somebody said make a quesadilla, but call it a tortilla and cheese. Just call it something different.
It's so good.
And I was like, that's probably the best one.
Your problem is marketing. It's not the food. It's your marketing plan.
So there's your tip. Next is to shop at the grocery. This is a mantra. Sorry, I'm reading it wrong. She says, I shop at the grocery store. I am not the grocery store. That is a great mindset to have if you are feeding children. And she's feeding 3 of them. She says, I don't supply endless options. I'm not going to overbuy produce that will end up going bad in the fridge without being used. I'm not going to be a vending machine for pantry snacks. My kids get to pick what they want, their non-recipe fruits, veggies, snacks to be for the week. And we usually pick 2 options for each category. I think this is an important mantra to have because right now we're seeing a lot of social media reels where people have these like restocks in their fridge and restocks in their pantry where they look like they are the grocery store. In reality, you shop at the grocery store. You are not the grocery store, and you don't have to be the grocery store for yourself, for your kids, for your partner, for anyone. So that's a really important mantra that I think that's the most important mantra I picked up, is that I don't have to provide endless or even a lot of options for myself or for my children. I just have to include them in the decision of what options I will provide.
If someone asked you to name a queer icon, who would you say?
Brittany, Christina.
That's not who we were thinking about. Try again.
Shirley Bassey, Tina.
And again?
Madonna, Celine Dion, Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey.
No, there's still someone you're missing.
Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen in particular.
Leather twink, Bruce Springsteen. Just very hand on hip, sassified Bruce.
This is Because the Bus Belongs to Us.
A serious journalistic quest to get Bruce Springsteen recognised as the queer icon we know that he is.
There's so much camp potential with him.
On my dating profile, I had something about being a fan of Nebraska-era Bruce Springsteen.
It's like you squint and everyone can be a butch.
Listen to Because the Bus Belongs to Us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Want to know how to leverage culture to build a successful business? Then Butternomics is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Brandon Butler, founder and CEO of Butter ATL. Over my career, I've built and helped run multiple 7-figure businesses that leverage culture and built successful brands. Now I want to share what I've learned with you. And on Butternomics, we go deep with today's most influential entrepreneurs, innovators, and business leaders to peel back the layers on how they use culture as the driving force in their business. On every episode, we get the inside scoop on how these leaders tap into culture to build something amazing. From exclusive interviews to business breakdowns, we'll explore the journey of turning passion for culture into business. Whether you're just getting started or an established business owner, Butternomics will give you what you need to take your game to the next level. This is Butternomics. Listen to Butternomics on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey guys, I'm Lauren Lapkus, voice of Teresa and host of Haunting. In this series, we'll be bringing you different totally true ghost stories each week, straight from the person who experienced it firsthand. I'm excited to share that you can now get access to all new episodes of Haunting 100% ad-free and 1 week early with an iHeart True Crime Plus subscription, available exclusively on Apple Podcasts. So don't wait. Head to Apple Podcasts, search for iHeart True Crime Plus, and subscribe today.
Hi, Hi, I'm Katie Lowe's.
And I'm Guillermo Diaz.
And now we're back with another season of our podcast, Unpacking the Toolbox, where Guillermo and I will be rewatching the show.
To officially unpack season 3 of Scandal.
Unpredictable, you don't see it coming. It's a wild, wild ride. The twists and turns in season 3.
Mesmerizing.
But also, we get to hang out with all of our old Scandal friends like Bellamy Young, Scott Foley, Tony Goldwyn, Debbie Allen, Kerry Washington.
So many people.
Even more shocking assassinations from Papa and Mama Pope.
And yes, Katie and I's famous teeth-pulling scene that kicks off a romance.
And it was peak TV. This is new Scandal content for your eyes, for your ears, for your hearts, for your minds.
Well, suit up, gladiators. Grab your big old glass of wine and prepare yourselves for even more behind the scenes. Listen to Unpacking the Toolbox on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Meet the real woman behind the tabloid headlines in a personal podcast that delves into the life of the notorious Tori Spelling as she takes us through the ups and downs of her sometimes glamorous, sometimes chaotic life and marriage.
I don't think he knew how big it would be, how big the life I was given and live is. I think he was like, oh yeah, things come and go. But with me, it never came and went.
Is she Donna Martin or a down-and-out divorcee? Is she living in Beverly Hills or a trailer park? In a town where the lines are blurred, Tori is finally going to clear the air in the podcast Misspelling. When a woman has nothing to lose, she has everything to gain.
I just filed for divorce. Whoa. I said the words that I've said like in my head for like 16 years. Wild.
Listen to Misspelling on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's talk about the actual meal plan. So she just shows us everything, and it is so helpful. It was one of the reasons that I took such a deep dive on this particular article. She shows you the receipt, a picture of her entire grocery haul. So it all came out to $123.93. Shows you a picture of everything that she bought and then starts to break it down of how she moved through the week. So Monday, she began with a rotisserie chicken. I love this, first of all, side note, for the day that you grocery shop, planning that you're not going to get home, unpack, put everything in the fridge, and then cook a wildly complicated meal. Plan that the day that you grocery shop is something easy to prepare once you get home. And that's where a rotisserie chicken is the perfect hack for that. So she got the rotisserie chicken for $6 and had that, and then was going to use leftovers, I believe, for another recipe. So
yeah, that's why so many people stop at Chipotle on the way home from the grocery store, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of decisions to make. And we have then decision fatigue, and we don't want to expend more energy cooking after we've already made so many decisions. So it's why it's so easy to stop and get food after you just bought food. Mm-hmm. And which is, there's no shame. It's a joke, right, that we see memes of on social media, but there is an actual reason why we do that. So if you can recognize that instead of just trying to work against it and shame yourself for buying takeout after you grocery shop, understand it and just make sure you get something pre-prepared at the grocery store for grocery shopping day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they had burrito bowls that night. Now, I will say this woman is kind of doing the most.
Stay-at-home mom.
That night, yeah, at this stage of life, right? She did talk about how she's had different stages of life, but right now they went for a walk, and then she gives it all. You guys.
She also says she gets her groceries delivered, so she pays a little bit extra
even for that. That's
true.
True. Yeah. So then she prepped some sourdough bread. Now this is where some of your own homemaking DIY can come in handy in cutting costs of some of these things, like your breakfast items, where if you're not buying prepackaged things, you can save a little bit. So for her, that's one of the ways that she's able to keep her costs low. So she prepped bread so that they could have that the next morning for breakfast, along with hard-boiled eggs. Then she used some of the leftover rotisserie chicken for chicken burritos from the night before. That's Tuesday. What did they do Tuesday night? Oh, then she made yogurt.
That is a little extra.
But I have made yogurt before. Pot.
I have made yogurt in my I've made yogurt before. It's a lot of yogurt, and if you have kids that love yogurt, it's good. I decided it wasn't worth it.
Then we see a yummy salad that night. Then Wednesday is that yogurt that she made, and then more leftovers of the salad, and then an egg salad sandwich, which I do love. Eggs are the VIP, the GOAT. They're everything. They're breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Oftentimes, some of my go-to meals do revolve around eggs, whether it's a hard-boiled egg in the morning, or it's egg salad for lunch, or it's egg sandwiches, or it's a fried egg on top of a rice bowl. You name it, they are, I think, one of the best ingredients that we can get at a low cost and super versatile.
We love eggs.
If you're looking to dip your toe into the water of how do I buy versatile ingredients that I can use across meals and it still feel different and interesting, eggs. Start with eggs. And then you're going to learn more and more from there about how to get creative.
This is the Egg Elegy podcast. So let's get into, are we on Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're into Wednesday. So after a nice long incubation period, she finished off her yogurt. I will just buy a big batch of plain Greek yogurt. It's not super expensive. So for me, there's just 4 of us. And, I will put some protein powder in that yogurt to sweeten it up and then top it with some granola. It's so, so good. But if you have kids that are eating more yogurt, then by all means, make your own yogurt. But she's moving on after the yogurt, some citrus salad. But needed something additional since the chicken was gone from the night before. So use the hard-boiled eggs that she had meal prepped. Again, another advocation for meal prepping. And then she just made her own version of an egg salad sandwich. So this is another key to saving on groceries and saving on food in general, is to not follow recipes directly. Don't do it.
Say it again. Give them permission, Jen.
Don't follow recipes directly. Instead, learn about like the purpose of different ingredients in recipes. So if there is a spice in a recipe that you don't have, Google it and see what its most common role is in recipes. What are common substitutions? So that you can figure out if you need that substitution or how you can substitute it. So like my husband doesn't like cumin. I like cumin.
Yeah.
So we kind of alternate. Sometimes I'll put cumin in a recipe, sometimes I won't. But if he had his way, it would just never be there and we would not own a bottle of cumin.
You'd never have to look at it again.
And if there was a recipe that called for it, we would just leave it out. So stuff like that. So she made an egg salad sandwich, but she did not buy extra ingredients to use it because she knows these are the ingredients that my family likes and they eat constantly, regularly, consistently. And very rarely do we buy specialty items unless we know we're going to be able to use it over and over.
Yeah, she moves on to stuffed potatoes,
taco
top potatoes, which potatoes are another MVP.
Jill loves potatoes. I love tacos. You can make anything taco. Taco salad, taco like
potato.
tostada, taco potato. I just
tortilla.
made a copycat. We talked about this on a recent podcast, a copycat Taco Bell Fiesta potatoes.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I've been dreaming about that.
Steak and just some regular queso and Greek yogurt.
I love loaded potatoes. That is, to me, that's a great weeknight. If you're tired, you don't have to do anything. You just heat up a potato and you throw whatever the heck you have on it in the fridge on top of it. So that's a good, and usually a crowd pleaser because everybody gets to pick what they end up putting on top of their potato. So love that one too. This is just inspiration for me, really.
She also made some homemade granola for her homemade yogurt. Again, stay-at-home mom. But it doesn't, I mean, it takes 5 minutes actually to make granola. So she has a recipe for vanilla granola that she says is a slam dunk.
One of the things that stood out to me about this too, as we're just adding our commentary to it are the habits that are formed around this, right? The habit of meal planning and the habit of meal prepping. It won't necessarily be for everybody, but she has formed a habit of using 10, 15 minutes of her weeknight after the kids are in bed to prep something, whether it's breakfast or lunch for the next day. And yeah, that can be a bit of a sacrifice. You might be more tired than the ability to do that if you're also thinking about doing the bedtime routine and dishes. But if able to stack some of these things, or, you've got another adult in the house and there can be some division of labor, it's something to consider as really being able to help the grocery budget of, do you have 10, 15 minutes to prep a loaf of bread, or to throw yogurt into the Instant Pot, or to prep the granola like she's doing, or whatever else works for you. Maybe it's muffin tins of eggs that you're baking really quickly, or breakfast wraps that you're making, or sausage that you're preheating so that they can be quickly reheated in the toaster oven. Whatever it is, what's one thing that you can do before you go to bed that's going to make the next day or the next 2 days easier?
Or what's one thing you can do when you get home from work that will make dinner easier later? There's just so many ways to look at it. One thing that's helped me in doing in crossing the barrier to do that one thing is to set a timer.
Yeah.
When you set a 10-minute timer, and this is mostly like seen with a 10-minute clean, right? We set a 10-minute timer, clean what we can in 10 minutes, and then be done. And that makes it less overwhelming. We could do the same thing for meal prepping. So we do what we can in 10 minutes. When there's a timer going, I also work faster, which is a fun revelation I've had. So what can I do in 10 minutes? And then once the timer is off, I don't do anything else. So that is a really easy way to get over the barrier of like, I don't have the energy to meal prep. And some of you have reached out to us, whether you have like some kind of like physical like impairment or difficulty, saying like, I can't, have a meal prep Sunday where I'm on my feet for hours meal prepping. And we're saying you don't have to. She doesn't. Yep. This author doesn't. She's literally just doing like one thing a day that takes 10 minutes so that she can, because granola is a big way to save money. Like if you're eating granola every week, you can save a lot of money by making your own. So it's also thinking of what is something that I have a lot, and how can I cut costs on that versus like, if it's something I don't have a lot, maybe I just buy it. Maybe I buy it pre-made. But if it's something I am consistently consuming, can I make it?
Ooh, I like that. Yeah. So Thursday was the granola. Then tacos showed up again. Although I'm pulling out so many tips from what she gave. It was a DIY taco for lunch for the kids' school and for herself. So tacos again, but I think some of the presentation of it, if you're someone who needs variety or kids kind of need it to look a little bit different or whatever the case may be, just presenting it a little bit different or substituting out a couple of ingredients so that it doesn't look like the same exact thing showing up again. So yes, it's tacos again, but it looks different. Some of the ingredients are a bit different and the presentation is a bit different. Again, that's just a marketing thing. If you're a mom who just needs to be a good marketer to her child, there you go.
Yeah,
there's
but
a little bit of tip.
My kid would eat mac and cheese every single day. So sometimes consistency is key. And sometimes you need to serve the same thing with different names or different presentation. It just depends. But
and then it was chicken kebabs.
Greek
and
chicken
then we're
kebabs.
Off to Friday.
Yes. Which, I mean, she recently got the cookbook Meal Prep Magic by Catherine McCord. So if you're looking for a book on meal prepping, that's one that she recommends. And she made a recipe for leftover rice pudding. So she had leftover rice And then she made a rice pudding out of it.
Which I love that. Rice pudding is so good. My mother-in-law made that for us recently, and that's a great way to use up leftover rice. Then it was a throw together leftovers of the Greek kebab for her own lunch. She was even able to make an orange Julia snack. Listen, we all don't have to go above and beyond like that, but it does look yummy. She made some biscuits, sheet pan eggs. Girl had some extra time on Friday, apparently. But then dinner was simple because she did prep some of the snacks and breakfast items for the weekend. So it was just pasta with some sauce for Friday night. And I love that. Make it simple.
Yeah. And so I think this is an example of like doing, this is 100% week, right? We don't always have 100% weeks. We should make it a goal to have 100% week, maybe like every other month or every month. If you're really working toward an audacious goal, then make it your goal to have one of these 100% weeks once a month.
Yeah.
If you're in a season that's difficult, exhausting, whatever, maybe it's your goal to have one of these weeks every quarter. So it's up to you, but we don't have to be 100% of the time.
Or flip side, it could be 100% because you made the plan for it. Like your 100% could include 2 frozen dinners that week, 1 takeout, 1 dine out, like whatever you plan and however you plan to spend on it, you can do and still hit your plan well, as long as you're being realistic about your actual timing, your energy levels, and your money.
Yeah. But some of this has kind of inspired me for my meal plan for next week. But so I want to point out some of the places where she reused things. So she made several loaves of sourdough, and she used different ingredients inside the sourdough. So she was making different types of bread that were the same thing, but reused different ingredients she has. So like dried cranberries. They love dried cranberries. She used some of it in a sourdough. She used some of it in her granola, some of it in her yogurt. They obviously had chicken quite a bit. I didn't see any other meats mentioned.
The meat, beef she had on top of the potatoes.
Okay, so the beef. So it was a predominantly like 80% chicken week and 1 beef dish. But she did have some vegetarian dishes with the spaghetti is not even a red sauce. So she didn't have to buy an extra marinara. She kind of just made her own sauce with like
olive oil and lemon zest.
Yes. So a key thing that stuck out to me was that I think maybe like 4 meals were chicken, 2 meals were vegetarian, 1 meal was beef. So, yeah, that's 7. And then she had all of her breakfasts were vegetarian. And then I don't think her lunches were pretty much just a new like variation of leftovers. So that was kind of what I got from it. Time and time again, like meatless meals will save you the most money. Man, if you're concerned with saving money on groceries, go vegetarian. Like that is, I mean, that's just it's not for everyone, but it just will save you the maximum amount of money. Or at least if you can't go 100%, go 20%.
Yeah. I mean, you'll still have to have your sights on where you're getting your protein. You might need to get protein supplements.
Eggs.
Yeah.
Eggs. I'm sorry.
Reusing ingredients, having a plan, sticking to that plan as much as possible.
Yeah.
I think
used
that's
raspberries in her yogurt bowls and her rice pudding. I did mention the rice pudding she made, she used for breakfast. So they were having rice on some days for dinner, and then the leftover rice was rice pudding for breakfast. They used like a lot of like the same. I think she used her yogurt to make a tzatziki for the Greek chicken. That's what it looks like. Yeah, so just a lot of reuse, a lot of tomatoes I'm seeing every single day, and guacamole I'm seeing every single day. I'm definitely seeing the oranges on the citrus salad that also showed up in the orange Julius.
Yeah, I think this is one of those situations where following someone, almost replicating what they're doing, and just getting your bearings with that, and then begin to branch out with your own creativity. But it's also okay to just get a meal plan from somebody else, look at exactly what they did, replicate it, and then refine it from there. And one of the ways that you can do that is by getting our 90-day fall meal plan for free when you come to the party.
You just have to
on
show
August
up live.
20th.
That's
just
the only
up.
way
You don't have to
get
spend
the
money.
meal plan.
You just get the meal plan.
To show up live to the party. And I think something that what you just said that stuck with me when we had Nicole Johnsey Burke from Gardenary on, where she said, when you are starting out, or if you don't feel confident in something, you follow one teacher and you do exactly what they do until you feel confident enough to branch out. It's so good and so necessary to take the perspectives from multiple experts so that you can customize a plan for your life. But when you are first starting out, or if maybe you're restarting, or maybe you just hit this place where I've been doing this a while and I don't feel confident right now in this season, to choose one person, follow them religiously, for lack of a better term, until you gain that confidence or regain that confidence.
That's what Instagram, I think, is good for, is like finding your people that are going to inspire you towards the habits and patterns that are helpful. Not necessarily all this impulse spending that they can influence you towards. But since you're here now, we hope that you come join and celebrate us on August 20th. Get the Friendletter, frugalfriendspodcast.com. But since you're here now, we might as well just do the next best thing.
Yeah.
The Bill of the Week.
That's right. It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the Bill of the Week.
Hi, I'm Judy. My bill of the week is physical therapy. I had some unexpected surgery, and my doctor recommended physical therapy twice a week for 12 weeks. It was expensive, but I felt it was an investment in my health. Well, I've improved a lot. I stopped my physical therapy. I am doing it at home, but this is a bill that I'm happy not to pay anymore.
Yes, Judy, my girl. A bill you are happy to pay and a bill that you are happy to pay no more. Both can be true at the same time.
Yes. This is such a good example. I love that you use the phrase investing in your health, because I think we all need to be reminded that this is important. When it comes to spending well, allocating our resources well in ourselves, our health, it's so important. And also the reminder that our spending on our health is not always going to be long term. We can invest in physical therapy, mental therapy for a season, for whatever it is that we're going through and navigating, and get to the other side of that concern and not need to spend on it anymore. And who knows how much that's going to end up saving us in the long term too, because we didn't ignore the problem. We addressed it. We invested in ourselves. There's no better person to invest in than yourself. And this is turning into the encouragement hour with Jen and Jill.
Mostly Jill.
Thank you, Judy. This was so inspiring.
Judy, Jen, Jill.
Yes. Triple J. If you are listening and want to submit a bill, whether it's about paying for something that you don't mind paying for, or being happy you're not paying for something anymore, or just investing in yourself.
Maybe your physical therapist's name is Bill.
Oh, I love that. frugalfriendspodcast.com/Bill. Leave it for us.
Want to know how to leverage culture to build a successful business? Then Butternomics is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Brandon Butler, founder and CEO of Butter ATL. Over my career, I've built and helped run multiple seven-figure businesses that leverage culture and built successful brands. Now I want to share what I've learned with you. And on Butternomics, we go deep with today's most influential entrepreneurs, innovators, and business leaders to peel back the layers on how they use culture as the driving force in their business. On every episode, we get the inside scoop on how these leaders tap into culture to build something amazing. From exclusive interviews to business breakdowns, we'll explore the journey of turning passion for culture into business. Whether you're just getting started or an established business owner, Butternomics will give you what you need to take your game to the next level. This is Butternomics. Listen to Butternomics on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If someone asked you to name a queer icon, who would you say?
Britney, Christina.
That's not who we were thinking about. Try again.
Shirley Bassey, Tina.
And again?
Madonna, Celine Dion, Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey.
No, there's still someone you're missing.
Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen in particular.
Leather Twink, Bruce Springsteen. Just very hand on hip, sassified Bruce.
This is Because the Bus Belongs to Us.
A serious journalistic quest to get Bruce Springsteen recognised as the queer icon we know that he is.
There's so much camp potential with him.
On my dating profile, I had something about being a fan of Nebraska-era Bruce Springsteen.
It's like you squint and everyone can be a butch.
Listen to Because the Bus Belongs to Us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Greetings, ghouls and girls, and welcome to Haunting, Purgatory's premier podcast for all things afterlife. I'm your host, Teresa. We'll be bringing you different ghost stories each week, straight from the person who experienced it firsthand. Some will be unsettling.
When she was with her imaginary friend, she would turn and look at you, and you felt like something else was looking at you too.
Some unnerving.
The more I looked at it, I realized that the thumb looked more like a claw, like a demon.
Some even downright terrifying.
The things that I saw, heard, felt in that house were purely demonic.
But all of them will be totally true. Listen to Haunting on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you live and get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Katie Lowe's.
And I'm Guillermo Diaz.
And now we're back with another season of our podcast, Unpacking the Toolbox, where Guillermo and I will be rewatching the show.
To officially unpack season 3 of Scandal.
Unpredictable, you don't see it coming. It's a wild, wild ride. The twists and turns in season 3.
Mesmerizing.
But also, we get to hang out with all of our old Scandal friends, like Bellamy Young, Scott Foley, Tony Goldwyn, Debbie Allen, Kerry Washington.
So many people.
Even more shocking assassinations from Papa and Mama Pope.
And yes, Katie and I's famous teeth-pulling scene that kicks off a romance.
And it was peak TV. This is new Scandal content for your eyes, for your ears, for your hearts, for your minds.
Well, suit up, gladiators. Grab your big old glass of wine and prepare yourselves for even more behind the scenes. Listen to Unpacking the Toolbox on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Meet the real woman behind the tabloid headlines in a personal podcast that delves into the life of the notorious Tori Spelling as she takes us through the ups and downs of her sometimes glamorous, sometimes chaotic life and marriage.
I don't think he knew how big it would be, how big the life I was given and live is. I think he was like, oh yeah, things come and go. But with me, it never came and went.
Is she Donna Martin or a down-and-out divorcee? Is she living in Beverly Hills or a trailer park? In a town where the lines are blurred, Tori is finally going to clear the air in the podcast Misspelling. When a woman has nothing to lose, she has everything to gain.
I just filed for divorce. Whoa. I said the words that I've said like in my head for like 16 years. Wild.
Listen to Misspelling on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And now it's time for the lightning round.
All right. How often do you go grocery shopping? And Jill and I are very different because Jill doesn't eat much And my family, we have many people who drink and eat a lot. So, Jill?
I go every 2 weeks, but I'm getting better at eating more food.
It's not bad. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Well, I did realize recently, because I've been thinking about, everyone's talking about protein, right? Like how much protein are you getting, blah, blah, blah. But that, along with kind of everything else, it made me think like, oh, how much food should you be getting in a day? And how much protein? And where do we kind of line up with this? And we were pretty far off to an alarming point. I feel okay, but I need to be eating so much more than I'm eating. So I'm trying. We're getting there. But I'm still only shopping every 2 weeks and planning around that. But just like trying to incorporate a lot more calories every day.
Well, I'm trying to do the opposite.
The average person's supposed to have 2,000 calories a day.
That is an average, yeah.
And it's been hard to that feels like a full-time job. It's been hard to figure out how to do that.
Yes, I am in the same boat, actually. I had to, this is embarrassing. I recently had to set alarms on my phone every 2 hours to remind myself to eat.
I believe that because you worked here when we were writing the book together. There were many days that we co-worked together at my house. And I typically, since I'm just accustomed to working from home, I break for lunch. I get hungry and I make lunch for myself and Eric usually. And when Jen was here, like I would make food for you and there were times where I'd get up, make lunch, bring it over to you, sit it next to you. You wouldn't notice it for like a full 45 minutes. And I'd be like, I made you lunch. It's right there. You'd be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even notice. So yeah, there are people like you who also get like really zoned in.
I zone in. Yeah. I have, I don't know if that's like an ADHD thing. I'm not diagnosed with ADHD, but like for some reason, when I start working, I don't stop until like 5 hours have passed.
A hyper focus.
I think hyper focused.
There's some really great pros to that. The con is you need an alarm to remember to eat.
For the business, for the book, for the listeners, that's great. For me, not as much.
Okay, so how often do you go grocery shopping?
I go grocery shopping maybe 1.5 times a week. So usually it's once a week, but maybe every other week I will have to go twice. I have a 1-year-old who drinks a lot of milk. And when we have milk in the house, everybody else drinks it too. So sometimes I'll have to make like an extra. I try to always have 2 gallons on hand, but if for some reason I just haven't gone through the other food in my house, like I might run short on milk. So I'll have to go get like more milk and then end up, I'll just, kind of look at my list and like replenish as needed. So I go at least once a week.
I think that's reasonable, especially like with having kids and some of your rhythm and routine. Part of my only going every 2 weeks is because I just don't get out of the house.
But meanwhile, she thought we were going to record this episode separately. And I'm like, please let me come over to your house, please.
Oh, of course. Anytime. Well, everyone, thanks so much for listening. We hope that this was helpful and inspiring. We hope that you are hungry and ready to meal plan and meal prep and just save on groceries. Something else that we're so grateful for is all of your reviews that you leave for us. We love the kind ones like this one from Anap859 says, favorite finance podcast, 5 stars. I can relate to these ladies. They are realistic and logical. Very well done podcast.
That is a very logical review. And I appreciate that. I can relate to your review.
There are no exclamation marks. There are no emojis. It is purely periods as punctuation. And I'm here for it.
Bless you, Adapt859.
Blessings on you.
So thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed the show, please take a minute to leave a rating and review, because it not just helps new listeners know what the show is all about. But as we are approaching other podcast hosts with podcasts that are a little bigger than ours, it helps them know that, like, even if they haven't heard of us before, we have a legitimate podcast and are important enough for them to have on our show so that we can promote our book, Buy What You Love Without Going Broke. So there's like a twofold incentive to rate and review the show. And it's why I think getting to 1,000 reviews is so important.
Yeah. And even if you see that we are at 1,000, please keep giving us a rating, because
going.
that'll help us get on even bigger
more
podcasts.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So
thank you.
If
Thanks,
there's a
everyone.
podcast that we should be on, leave that in your review, because I'll send it to them. You know?
And we'll also see you August 20th.
Yes.
Live, and we'll play games together.
Can't wait.
FrugalFriendsPodcast.com.
Frugal Friends is produced by Eric Siriani.
Jen, speaking of grocery shopping and speaking of getting older, did I talk about that on this? Yes. Speaking of my youth being over, pretty much, this weekend, Eric and I checked out a new grocery store that's 25 minutes away. We drove 25 minutes to check out a cool, new to us.
You didn't just drive
grocery
over
store.
a bridge. You drove over the bridge.
The big bridge.
Yeah.
This bridge, it's called the Skyway. It's big enough and tall enough for cruise ships to fit under it.
That is
And
the point of it being so big, is so that the cruise ships can go under it.
It's a trip. Very fun, though. Honestly, the trip goes by so fast because it's so amazing. Don't want to be up there on a windy day, though. We crossed the bridge to go to this grocery store because, again, we're closer to 40 than we've ever been, and going to a cool grocery store on the weekend is what we do.
That sounds so fun. I wish I was at a point in my life where I could have fun.
It was exhilarating. And I'm so sorry. You can go to grocery stores too. You should go to grocery stores. It was called Detweiler's, in case there's any local people, which, side note, happens to be owned by people who lived 5 minutes from both Eric and I growing up in Franconia, Pennsylvania. So random.
Shout out to Franconia.
Yo, Franconia.
Whoa.
Very, very small suburb of Philly. If you're there, though, it would not feel like a suburb of Philly. Anyways, I digress. And they had an abundance of produce for amazing prices, but also random produce like jackfruit and other things that I couldn't pronounce that usually you can only find at specialty grocery stores, and just every herb, every fruit, every veggie that you could possibly want at really amazing prices and very high quality, like organic. All of their meats, they pride themselves on how quality their meats are, great prices, their bakery. The perimeter of the store is where it's at. The best part is that they would make announcements consistently throughout the time that we were there, maybe there for an hour. And they'd come on and be like, go get your mama's homemade bread from the bakery. Thanks for coming to Detweiler's. Woo! Every announcement would end with a woo!
Sounds like something you'd find in Texas, not Bradenton.
Well, it is still the South, I guess. But yeah,
Florida
inspired
is not
by
the South,
the North.
but that's a different conversation.
Yeah, I do feel on that. But maybe I'm adding the twang and that wasn't entirely there, but it felt invigorating and it felt like where I wanted to be. And so, but to link this into a bit of our podcast episode and a bit of the tips, I do talk about this a lot, but one of the things that keeps me inspired to keep meal planning, keep cooking, is trying new places out and getting some different ingredients and just making the whole experience a bit more lively. Woo! Yeah, so I feel like I got some different cuts of meat than I would normally get, and a few different types of produce and some baked goods that were new to me. And and all at a reasonable price. So yeah, it's one of those things I'm like, oh, I could maybe come here like every other month because it's really good prices on meat. That's something that I think some people will hack is like, I go here for my meat, I go here for my produce. And I'm not down to have to drive to a ton of different places. Like if it's just better to make it convenient and go to one spot, that's great. But if it happens to work out for me where, quarterly I go and I stock up on meat at this one place, it's a little bit further, but it makes sense and I can throw it in the freezer. Those types of things I have found helpful. So one of the things that helps me to only shop every 2 weeks is I will usually get meat for like 2 months. I will just stock up on meat and I won't need to do another meat run for like 2 months.
How many freezers do you?
Actually, there is a discount Home Depot store I probably talked about in the past near us.
Mm-hmm.
So all the things that Home Depot sells, they sell at 50% off. And we got a small freezer. Like it looks like a mini fridge that you'd have in your college dorm room, but it's that size of a freezer. So I do have an extra one in my garage now so that I can just... So it doesn't take a ton of energy to run because it's really small. We got it at a steep discount and it helps.
But you can find those on
stock up.
Facebook Marketplace all the
That's so
time
true.
too.
Yeah.
Yep. That's lovely. Debt Weilers.
Thanks.
Woo!
Want to know how to leverage culture to build a successful business? Then Butternomics is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Brandon Butler, founder and CEO of Butter ATL. And on Butternomics, we go deep with today's most influential entrepreneurs, innovators, and business leaders to peel back the layers on how they use culture as the driving force in their business. Butternomics will give you what you need to take your game to the next level. Listen to Butternomics on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If someone asked you to name a queer icon, who would you say?
Britney, Christina, Shirley Bassey, Tina, Madonna, Celine Dion, Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey.
Bruce Springsteen.
This is Because the Bus Belongs to Us.
A serious journalistic quest to get Bruce Springsteen recognised as the queer icon we know that he is.
Listen to Because the Bus Belongs to Us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
There's something different about the conversations we have late at night. They often spin off in strange and wonderful directions. So what if those laid-back conversations were with some of the biggest musicians in the world?
Midnight Chats has already welcomed Tame Impala, Charlie XCX, Mark Ronson, Vince Staples, and many more.
Join me, Stuart Stubbs,
and me, Greg Cochran,
as we talk to our favourite musicians about the things they don't normally talk about.
Listen to the new series of Midnight Chats on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favourite shows.
Hi, I'm Katie Lowe's.
And I'm Guillermo Diaz.
And we're the hosts of Unpacking the Toolbox, the Scandal Rewatch podcast where we're talking about all the best moments of the show.
Mesmerizing.
But also, we get to hang out with all of our old Scandal friends like Bellamy Young, Scott Foley, Tony Goldwyn, Debbie Allen, Kerry Washington.
Well, suit up, gladiators. Grab your big old glass of wine and prepare yourselves for even more behind-the-scenes stories with Unpacking the Toolbox.
Listen to Unpacking the Toolbox on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts,
or wherever you get your podcasts.
Meet the real woman behind the tabloid headlines in a personal podcast that delves into the life of the notorious Tori Spelling as she takes us through the ups and downs of her sometimes glamorous, sometimes chaotic life and marriage.
I just filed for divorce. Whoa. I said the words that I've said like in my head for like 16 years. Wild.
Listen to Misspelling on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.